When I was a math instructional coach, my team was able to take our students from under 50% who were meeting and exceeding standards up to almost 80% in 3 years. Not only that, but we used to give the NWA MAP test, and on that assessment, our incoming sixth graders, their average score was the same as what the average fourth grader scored. But by the time they left us in eighth grade, the average was at eighth grade level. So we successfully were able to help many, many students to catch up from having that unfinished learning. And it set them on a path into high school that is going to help them be so much more ready for college and career readiness. And so that is where my passion for supporting unfinished learning really started from. And I want to share with you 3 of the key things that we did as a team that allowed that to happen. And then I'll connect that to the framework so you can kind of understand how I embedded those pieces into these 5 steps to bridge the gap to grade level math, okay? So the first one was we had a shared vision. So I had a very clear vision as the leader of what I know to be true about strong math instruction. And with that, I took the time to invest the team into that vision. At the end of the day, we were a team united in the kind of instruction that we wanted to have in our classrooms. That didn't mean that every single day it always happened, but we were shooting for the same thing and working towards the same thing. Now, the second thing is that we had a limited number of priorities. So even though there were network priorities and my principal had priorities and all of that, we were able to really narrow down to what was most important. And part of that was me having a clear idea of like what were the most important things and keeping steadfast with those. And a couple of those things are conceptual, teaching conceptually, making sure that we value the concepts as much as the procedures. And the other piece is having students doing the heavy lifting, having students doing the thinking about the math and not having the teacher doing all of the work. So when you look at the framework, you'll see that the first 2 steps are envision and invest. So that represents that first thing that I think really made that big difference for us. And so you'll see that there. Then step 4 is engage. And so that's where I really baked in this piece about students doing the thinking, students doing the work, because that is one major thing. It makes such a difference between math classrooms where students actually learn the math and get a deep understanding of it, and ones where that's not happening. The third thing that contributed to our growth with the students was growth of the teachers. And that was through consistent professional learning opportunities. I also met with them weekly for one-on-one coaching sessions. So I observed their classrooms, gave them feedback, and we partnered together about how we could adapt their practices to make the learning stronger and stronger as the days went on. Now, I'm telling you this because given the vantage point that I was able to have working at that national nonprofit where we served more than 800 schools, I know this to be true, that in a lot of schools where a lot of students have unfinished learning, some of these things are lacking. There's not a shared vision for strong math instruction. There is not a limited set of priorities that everybody knows about and can name and is working toward. And there's not an effective and consistent professional learning plan for teachers. If you have like an upside down triangle, what I'm talking about is when you're looking at that MTSS plan, and instead of having 15 or 20% of students who need tier 2 and tier 3, and you actually have like 70% of your students that are multiple years behind, that's not just about unfinished learning. That's about ineffective teaching practices. And so that is why when I work with schools, when I work with teachers, we start with vision And we also embed in there the things that are very, very important for just overall strong math instruction. And some of those include on grade level lessons, students doing the heavy lifting, discussion, all of those things. That's part of it. If that's not happening in classrooms consistently at your school, you're going to continue to have unfinished learning year after year after year. All right, so just to recap, 3 of the things that are so important outside of this idea about addressing the unfinished learning head on, which is extremely important as well. And when you look at the framework, you'll see steps 3 and step 5 addressing those head on. But I also just wanted to explain a little bit about where steps 1, 2, and 4 came from. And also just name the fact that this isn't something you can just hand to teachers and expect them to do. It takes ongoing support and coaching from you or a math coach or an instructional leader in order to support them with the implementation and make sure that there's a really cohesive and coherent plan across your whole school.